Good afternoon, PMAppers, and to our dear viewers. Welcome to the most awaited program here in PMAP, the People Manager on Cam. This is the online show of the People Management Association of the Philippines, or PMAP, the premier organization of HR professionals, people managers, and leaders in the country. Thank you for joining us once again in this new year of learning about, of course, people, leadership, human resources, innovation, and business. My name is Lawrence Ko, Head of Learning and People Development of Mondelez Incorporation. I'm going to be your anchor host for today. I'm very excited to be with you this Wednesday afternoon as we have a very exciting episode lined up for you. No? And if you're new to the show, let me share with you that we have two segments. That's going to be must and anticipate this. The must segment provides us the opportunity to have meaningful conversations on what is vital and of critical importance in people and in business. The second segment is going to be anticipate this. This segment focuses on innovations, on inventions, on breakthroughs, or even regenerative transformations that we must look forward to so that we are always up to date in supporting the people in our organizations and, of course, eventually the business of our company. But this time, given that this is the very first PMAP on cam or People Manager on cam that we will be having for the year, it will be a bit different. What we will be doing is that we're going to be combining the two segments because our guest speaker will have very valuable insights to share with us. So we're going to be maximizing the whole hour that we're going to have with our guest speaker this afternoon. So join us and stay tuned until 2 p.m. So that's going to be a full hour. Feel free to also connect with us by sharing your comments or questions in the comment section. So if I'm not mistaken, we are live in LinkedIn, we're live in YouTube, and we're also live on Facebook. So if you are already connected in any of our social media channels, please feel free to just say hi, say good afternoon, and of course later on, as our guest speaker is already sharing, feel free to send in your questions, your insights, or any of your comments so that we can make this as engaging as possible. Because of course, that's the objective of People Manager on Cam, for us to be able to get the best insights from the best speakers and professionals in the industry, and then at the same time get these conversations to our members and to even non-members of the People Management Association of the Philippines. Okay, great. Now, let us get the ball rolling by going to our first episode of the year. The topic and the title of this particular episode is Navigating the Workplace Maze, Mastering Decisions and Action Models in Management. And our resource speaker is a lecturer on international business, new business ventures such as startups and scale ups, and strategic thinking in management of the University of Asia in the Pacific's Entrepreneurial Management and Master of Science in Management graduate programs. Now, fellow people managers and friends, I am very excited to welcome our very first guest this year, Professor Samuel Dumnu. Good afternoon, Prof. Sam.
Hi, good afternoon, Lawrence. I'm glad to be here, and I would like to greet also Mr. Rene Hiner, who is the
Mhm.
executive director of this association, and of course the officers and members of PMAP. And so it's my pleasure to be here this afternoon and you know talk about a few things that will
Mhm.
be useful and meaningful to the membership.
Likewise, likewise. It is indeed our pleasure. No, so we're very excited to hear some of your thoughts and insights, no, with respect to the topic that we have prepared for this afternoon. But perhaps, Prof. Sam, we could just ask you, no, to provide perhaps some introduction, no, to the
Yeah,
things that we will be discussing.
yeah. Well, I have actually lined up a few things here. Uh, you see, when it comes to uh, having these talks. Normally, I want to have graphic illustrations of models. I work on models because if you just keep on saying and talking about the concepts, it's very difficult to remember all those things that you say in 1 hour. And I know because I have students, and it's difficult to remember everything that you just talk about. So I use models. No? Now, these are some of the models that I'd like to present today, this afternoon. The Eisenhower decision action model. This one is, this is very basic and very useful. It talks about, that's the square in or rectangle in four quadrants, and that's divided to urgent, significant, non not not urgent or non-urgent, and then insignificant. And it says here that if it is urgent, then that's you need to decide and take action right away. Of course, the right away could mean from this hour or maybe the next 24 hours or the next 3 days.
Mhm.
Significant, of course, he says that you schedule. By the way, when I talk about Eisenhower, we're really talking about the president of the United States here. President, the late President Dwight Eisenhower. And so he says there's no, if it's not urgent, you delegate or assign. Now, um, actually, while this is useful, and if you have been using this matrix and it is useful to you, then that's good, and you continue to use it. I do have comments on this particular classification because I just want to go back there first to the previous one because when it says not urgent, delegate and assign, but actually because of certain skills and knowledge that people have, sometimes even if it's urgent, you may have to delegate. But of course, that
Mhm.
doesn't mean that you abdicate. You still have to push through and follow through with the results. But the thing here is that it doesn't mean that if it's urgent, you have to personally do it yourself because
Mhm.
skills that are probably uh, well possessed by some other people who are expert in that area, and they would be the best person to take action on that. Okay, so you can still delegate. So this is I find that some parts of this is a little mushy, so I try to improve it. So we can go to the next slide, and I want to the next slide, please. So this one is a modification of the Eisenhower matrix. So you will notice that it has, instead of just four quadrants, we have divided this into nine quadrants. And there are three columns. The first column is the uh, essential aspects or elements that need decision and action. And then the next column is, I call it the important ones. Of course, when you have essential, it's also important. But this one is important, but not essential. And then, of course, the third is the trivial. Now, so how do we differentiate essential and important and trivial? Well, this is the reason why it is very important to have to know your goals because different goals
Mhm.
will have different uh, aspects or concepts of what is essential and what is not essential. Okay. When I say essential, it means that you cannot do without it. It's absolutely necessary. It's just like air, food, shelter. That is very essential to life. Now, important. Well, education is very important, although it's not essential. If you are uneducated, you don't have any education, it doesn't mean that you die. No? But if you don't have air, you don't have water, you don't have food, you will die. So that sort of categorize essential and differentiates essential from important but not essential. And then, of course, you have got the trivial. Again, it depends on the person. What do you consider is trivial? Now, that's the reason why I talk about goals because, for example, mostly in business, we always talk about economic goals. But there are
Mhm.
actually non economic goals. When we talk about trivial, for example, some people will consider birthday parties as trivial. In other words, you put you assign a date for it, you can attend it, but you may not attend it. You may decide not to. Again, it depends
Mhm.
on the person because one of the goals that you set for yourself may be a relationship goal, so that maybe you're growing. watching a recital, a piano recital, could be very important to you. And it is trivial to others, but it is important to you. So it really depends on what your goal is. So that's why essential, important, trivial is always attached to goals. You have to establish your goals and define it. Um, Material goals, financial goals, and then relationship goals. You have spiritual goals. So you have to categorize what is important to you, what is meaningful to you, and then
Mhm.
on the I classify the vertical uh, axis as degree of urgency. So when it's near the bottom, it's it has it's more urgent than the one that's on top. So here we are. We have the first color, which is red. You have those are uh, well, they maintain a certain level of urgency. So the first line, the first three lines, that's something that needs to be done within 7 days, and then you have something to be done within the day. So that's very urgent. Uh, you have a license that's expiring today, then that is urgent because you know whether it is essential to you or important to you. If you have a driver, then it's not very essential. Okay, it's
Mhm.
important but not essential. But if you are a driver of taxi cab, oh, that is essential. Okay, so the so essentiality is urgency within the day, within 3 days, and then within 7 days. And then the next level, the orange colored, it's categorized as urgent within 15 days, urgent within 30 days, urgent within 45 days, and so on and so forth. In the higher part of the matrix, it's something that you need to do within, let's say, 3 months. So it can be essential, but it's not. It doesn't have to be done within the week. But you have
Mhm.
to. It's important to really list it down because it might escape you. Okay. Now, the number of things that you need to do on the first, let's say, it's not a quadrant, but it's a nonagrant, the first portion, which is essential and to be done within 7 days, the more things you have there, it is a reflection on your ability to plan and schedule. Because if you keep on postponing things, of course, at some point in time, everything becomes urgent within the next 3 days. So this is the reason why I have this, and you can apportion to this several levels of utility in relation to your goals. So,
Mhm.
as I said, you just have to determine what your goals are, and my suggestion is that you have different types of goals. You have the economic goals, um, organizational goals, and then you have relationship goals. So you do that, and then you categorize these things. Okay,
Mhm.
so that's as far as this is concerned. This matrix, I hope that you'll be able to use it, and it
Mhm.
will be useful and helpful to you.
Mhm. So some
So,
questions here, Prof. Sam.
mm,
So coming from in referencing this particular matrix of yours, so it would be very important, for example, well, I'm trying not to use the term important because it's part of the matrix. So it's very critical
mm,
for a particular person, for example, or a professional to be able to make sure that he or she gets so those that are relatively high in urgency and relatively high in essentiality. So from a prioritization
yeah,
perspective, that should be the objective.
yes. The code there is E EU 1.3.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so down there is EU 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. So those things are, it's got to be done within 7 days. Why?
Mm-hmm.
Because it is essential, and of course, uh, kumbaga ano there's an expiration date. The
Mm-hmm.
action uh, after that, then you have a problem. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so the
Got
next
it.
one
Got
is
it.
important. So and then you have they have also their levels of urgency, and then of course the
Mm-hmm.
trivial. Now there might be certain trivial things that is I mean you want to do, like attending the birthday party of a friend. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
it is something that you can probably do without if you want to, if you are pressed for time as far as the others are concerned. If you're not able to plan the others, the essential and the important, then the trivial goes away. I mean, they will be sacrificed. So, but then the next question will be, well, okay, it's just the birth of my friend. But if you keep on doing that to your friend, you'll probably not have him a friend for a long time. I mean, for
Mm-hmm.
so that's how I view it. No?
Okay, that is clear now. Thank you for
Okay,
sharing,
so
Prof. Sam. So it might be that if, for example, you're trying to prioritize some of your action items, and you're only acquainted with the Eisenhower priority matrix, and then even when you do the Eisenhower priority matrix, you still have like 20, 30 items on a particular on one quadrant, and you are now
yes,
being given a task to try and make further prioritizations of those 20
yes,
items that are urgent to you.
yes,
So perhaps that's a good opportunity for us to use your decision and action matrix.
yes. And the important thing there is that you have to clearly define what your goals are, because this
Mm-hmm.
matrix is only meaningful, and in fact, the Eisenhower matrix is also meaningful if you have defined what your goal is. What do you want to accomplish? What is your purpose? If you have clearly defined that, then things will fall into place.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got it. Got it. So that's
So
only be the
this
very
is,
first. That's a prerequisite. You have to set an
yes,
objective first.
you have to have an objective. You have to have a purpose. You have to have a goal. And then this one comes in handy.
Mm-hmm.
Classification of the things you need to do to arrive at those goals.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Got
Okay.
this. Got this. Thank you. Thank you for sharing, Prof. Sam. No, I can
Okay.
only imagine, especially for those that are tuned in right now, especially if they are providing services. For example, if some of you that are watching us are, of course, coming from human resources, and you take on requests coming from different stakeholders of the organization. So perhaps this is a good opportunity for you to try and use something else, something that's more comprehensive
Yes.
than the Eisenhower matrix.
Well,
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you for sharing this, Prof.
yeah.
Sam.
Well, they can take a picture of this if they want. They can take a picture of this and find out what works for you. No? So sometimes in the course of your, accomplishing things, there are many aspects to your life. It's not just your work life, but you have also your relationships, and you have also
Mm-hmm.
your spiritual engagement. No? So how do you prioritize that? How do you. So and then I would like to go to the next matrix. Hopefully you're able to sort of freeze that and take a picture of that if you want. So we go to the next matrix. Uh, this is another one if you are that you can use if you are deciding between several options. No, it's called the Pew matrix, a decision solution matrix. So whatever issue you have to solve, you have to be able to list down the criteria that is important to you. You will notice that this matrix, well, it talks about the criteria, and then you have to put weights on the criteria, and then you write down the solutions, and then you compare solutions insofar as the criteria are concerned. So this is just you know, a hazy example. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
a solution that can be what is important to you. Well, first, it must be quickly, it can be implemented. And then the next is does this solution solve the problem completely? And then the third is, what about the cost? And then, are there regulatory risks involved here? Are there possible negative consequences along the line? So you have to think about that. So you will notice that in this particular case, for example, the weights differ. For example, can be quickly implemented. You put only a weight of one. So it's not as important as solving the problem completely, because there are some solutions that do not provide complete solutions. They are interim solutions, and some solutions even create new problems. No, so that's why solving the problem completely has a weight of five. Okay, and then cost, it's a weight of one, and then impact on the customer. If it is a product that affects the customer, then of course it is important in you. So you rate it two. But it really depends on how, again, you look at the importance and the essentiality of a particular criteria. So this could even be used for deciding between you're in personnel or human resources between applicants. So you look at the criteria. What is very necessary? What is necessary in this particular job? Technical skills, and then people skills, and let's say mental attitude or work habits. So you want to rate it, and what is the most important to you? What is the weight of technical skill here? If you are looking for a let's say a computer guy, maybe technical skill is maybe rates maybe four or five, and then people skills maybe only one, because well, some of these guys just work on the computers, etc. They don't need. But if it's a salesman, maybe people skills move up higher. Maybe the weight is five or four. So then you rate each particular uh, applicant or candidate according to this. So it becomes a very very objective way of deciding on who is best fitted for that particular position. So different positions will have different criteria, of course. So this is a good matrix also to use when it comes to deciding between alternatives.
Mhm. So just a quick
Okay.
question, Prof. Sam. So in terms of like the if one of our viewers, for example, would opt to use this particular matrix, just want to confirm that the variable here would be the weights. So the
The
weights
weight,
would
yes,
depend on the
yes,
situation and
yes.
the context of the practitioner.
Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yes. So a human manager, and then let's say a guy in production, they say the production or the operations manager would want a supervisor, and then he says, okay, I want this. That we have to discuss with him. Okay, what are the criteria that you want, and what is important? Of course, I think as an HR, you have to guide them also, because sometimes the people in that is so close to the issue at hand will only see, let's say, I want somebody who is particular about setting or meeting deadlines. So to him, the ability to deliver on time is probably five. But then you will say that, yeah, what about his, because if he's working alone, that's fine. But what about his, again, his relationship, I mean, people skills? Does he, I mean, is he agreeable, an agreeable person? Is a very disagreeable person? How does that count? Maybe you have a very efficient worker, but a very disagreeable personality. So then, you know, uh, that is now the job of the HR to mention that to the guy who's, hey, I want somebody who can just meet deadlines. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say it's a sales. Of course, the sales manager wants somebody who can meet the targets all the time. No, but
Got it.
then
Got
there
it.
is the ethical aspect because there are some salesmen who would cut corners. No, and then okay, he meets targets, but what about his ethical mindset? I mean, that's why it needs a discussion between uh, the guy who's asking for the HR to supply the necessary talent and what you need really for that particular position. Okay, so I
Got it.
mentioned
Got
about
it.
okay, so I don't know. You can use that. They can take a picture of that as one of the
Mhm.
alternatives that they can use.
Another
Um,
question that I have, Prof. Sam, would be on the keys on when one has to answer the and rate rather the solutions and ideas. So, for example, for criteria number one can be quickly implemented. For solution A, I would assume that it's a plus because the answer is yes. So
yes,
solution A can be quickly implemented, and I would assume
yes,
it will receive a negative or a minus sign if it cannot be quickly
it can be
implemented.
implemented.
Now I'm
Yes.
wondering about the letter S. What does the letter S stands for
Oh,
this
same,
particular?
same. This is the pew. For me, actually, you can discard that. For me,
Mhm.
because you really have to really look at a particular uh, criteria on a dichotomy. So if it's same, you can just put, let's say, plus or minus whatever, and then the other one
Mhm.
you also have to put plus or minus. But to me, this is actually not necessary the S valuation. But again, that's the Pew matrix. I don't want to change that. But
Mhm.
it's
Mhm.
to
Okay.
me it's irrelevant. The S is irrelevant. No? Now you can just put
Mhm.
zero if you want. You can just put
Mhm. Okay.
zero.
Got it. Got it.
No, so
So
it
if it
doesn't
cannot
count.
be if it cannot be answered directly by a yes or a no, with regarding the
Just
criteria, you
zero.
can just put a zero, or
Yeah,
in for Pew
zero
it's an
there.
S. Okay. Got it. Got
Yeah.
it.
So for
Mhm.
example, in solve problem completely, so that's five ang weight. So if it is negative, that's five negatives.
Mhm.
Okay. So now this matrix uses five as a parang highest one to five. Normally, ako
Mhm.
I just use up to four ranking because if you put one and then five, it's too domineering that weight that you put five. It practically
Mhm.
invalidates all others kasi masyadong
Mhm.
malaki yung five no? So normally I would use only up to four ang limit ko, four.
Mhm.
So plus
Mhm.
four, minus four. I don't go up to five. Some people want to even go to up to nine, but again, to me, that's the multiplier effect becomes devastating when you start adding the numbers because the nine will trump all others who just got two or three.
Mhm.
So that's why I don't want to give too much uh, kumbaga too much difference in the weights. So one to four for
Mhm.
me is just right. Anyway, that's my
Okay. So.
personal
Mhm. So there has to be equity to make sure that
opinion. Okay.
it's going to para hindi lopsided no when we
Okay.
do the sums of both the positives and the negatives. Got that. And perhaps my last question
Yes.
for the Pew Matrix would
Yeah.
be for the total rated score. So I would assume that for solution A, it's going to be the net of the positives and the negatives. So solution A would have a
Yes.
negative 2
Yes.
total rated score.
Yes. That's right.
Got it.
So talagang that's out. You just have to. You just can't take a look at it. And the reason why it's out is because to begin with, the rating of five is rather high. It trumps all others. No?
Mhm.
Um, because it might solve it might solve the problem completely, but then costs cost less than the budget, but it does not cost less than the budget, so it's much more. Let's say if this was plus, it solves the problem completely. If it's a plus, then immediately that's plus five. But then cost of the budget more than the budget, maybe it's minus. If it's minus, the thing is that you still go through it,
Mm-hmm.
because if this solves the problem completely and it's a plus, ang A, it's a plus, then immediately you get a five plus there. Whereas it
Mm-hmm.
costs less than the budget, it's a minus because it costs more than the budget. Uh, the one that the weight of five trumps all others. So you will be misled into thinking that yeah, we have to implement it because even it's so expensive, we will still implement it. But then again,
Mm-hmm.
the issue is, uh, especially if it's economic decision, you just live with budget.
Mm-hmm. Okay,
So
got it.
anyway, so
So,
that's the Pew Matrix,
mhm,
and
mhm. Yeah. So, a much deeper analysis
and
has
then
to
I have,
be.
I think,
Mhm.
yeah, you have to.
Yeah.
Well, in
Uh,
other words, you just have to think about it, ponder deeply.
mhm.
But my suggestion is that Pew Matrix. Personally, I limit it to four as the highest weight.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
So you can use five, and as I said, some people use even up to nine. I don't
Mm-hmm.
agree with that because it's, as I said, something rates nine and it trumps everything else. It trumps
Mm-hmm.
everything else.
Got it, got it. Very lopsided. So
Okay, so
perhaps it's a good
yeah,
opportunity for us to ask our audience, some of our
yes.
viewers, if you
So
have
my
any
question
questions,
sila.
feel free to send them in the chat. No, send them in the comment section of LinkedIn, in the comment section of Facebook and YouTube, depending on what particular medium or platform you're currently tuned in. I'm pretty sure that some of the things, specifically the matrix that Professor Sam showed to us, I think the second one, it's proprietary. It's a SAMD action decision matrix. So I'm pretty sure that it's the first time that you're
Right.
seeing that.
You can
So if
use
you have
it.
any questions regarding that matrix, or if it's also the first time that you're seeing the Pew matrix and you have any questions, it's a good opportunity for you to ask them in the chat, and we could have Prof. Sam answer your questions. Okay, I think we can proceed, Prof. Sam. I think
Yes.
you're going to be showing
Yeah.
us
Okay.
the fourth one.
Yeah. The next. This one is a non. I call it advocacy matrix. The next, please. Okay. So there are two lines here, the vertical and the horizontal. And the vertical line is the line that defines economic doability. Pragmatic. Is it practicable? Is it doable? No, in terms of economics. And then this is normally the criteria that many of us in business look. But there is also the non-economic aspect, and I call that the principled or the advocacy. If you have an advocacy, and usually it's who defines advocacy? Usually it's kumbaga no, it's an advocacy of either the owner, the patriarch, or the company itself. No, it's just like if you are a pharmaceutical company or a medical in a medical field, uh, one of the advocacies is really do no harm. That's a Hippocratic law. Do no harm. So even if it is pragmatic, but it can harm people, don't do it. You know, and that has been one of the issues now with these some of these drugs, pharmaceuticals that have been released into the market. That even if it does some harm, uh, because it is economically pragmatic, it's doable. They go ahead with it. And in fact, I know that there were some companies who fired their CEO, who who was ethical enough to withdraw the product, but the
Mm.
stockholders didn't like it because he recalled the product because he found out that in the tests there were adverse reactions and some people died. So he withdrew the product. Because of this, the stockholders didn't like it. He was fired. He was changed. So again, that's those are issues that sometimes need to be contended with. No? Now, in this particular case, we have the vertical, which is the pragmatic, and the center is, of course, zero, the neutral point, below which it becomes economically undoable. It's probably too expensive. So the farther down you go, the more economically undoable it is. So
Mhm.
on the right side, you go to the ideal, the principled portion, and then the non-ideal, non-principled. And so each field, the first quadrant that is occupying the operating field, this is the field where it is economically doable and at the same time it is principled. So that's why I call it green. Okay. So it's doable and it is principled. Okay. Down below that, I call it the Quixotic field because while it is principled, it is economically not economically doable, or to do it is so expensive. Huh? So it's not, it's Quixotic. And then on the other side, if it is not principled, not doable, then of course it's irrelevant. You don't even consider look at it at all. And then on the area where I call it the hustler's field,
Mhm.
it is a non-principled but doable. It's profitable. You make a lot of economic inroads, but it is non-principled. No? Um, and a company, a corporation, or person must sometimes, oftentimes, you are subjected to these kinds of decisions. Principled and doable, but there is doable but not principled. No? You cut corners, you do certain things that are not on. Now, it really depends on the mindset of the owners or the people, the capitalists, the people who run it. And that is where advocacies now are become crucial, no? Because you're not just talking about the economic aspect of a decision, whether it's a product or a service or a decision, but it is also the ethical aspect of the decision. So defining that, you can have a very strict um, policy on some things that borderline things. And I go to the next slide, please. This is what happens if you become too strict. Uh, the arrow leans towards the right, and you will notice right away that your doable, principled, and doable field shrinks
Mhm.
uh, because, you become so restrictive. It's like one example that I could make is, for example, many many U.S. companies before, and I think even now, they had this law of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act. Okay, and so bribery, corruption, etc. was a no-no, and many of the companies, U.S. companies, started to complain because they cannot compete. That's what they said. They cannot compete with uh, with other companies from other countries who don't have the same laws. Okay, so what happened was that many companies keep on losing on certain bids. Okay, now, and then the other one is it can be carried to the extreme that while it might be a good uh, principled and ethical thing to do or policy. uh, Now you define about what do you mean by bribery, or what do you mean by corruption, or giving gifts to customers. So how do you define that? Let's say, uh, okay, giving gifts. What about treating a customer out? Uh, or what about giving wines during Christmas? So those are some of the things that become uh, difficult, or difficult to decide on. So it depends on the company. How do they view it? So this has to be defined, because sometimes these the advocacies become a hindrance for economic growth. Now, on the other hand, you could tilt it on the other side, so that you will move towards doing things which are already shady. So
Mhm.
it expands your field. No? Economically, you can do a lot of inroads, uh, but you are now treading on questionable ethical areas. And I just want to mention about, uh, and this is a fact, about certain pharmaceutical companies who, in spite of the ethical issues that were confronting a new product, the 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 company proceeded with it anyway. In fact, they disciplined and they fired the guy who advocated for that Hippocratic principle of do no harm. Okay, so again, I just want to mention that uh, there will be times when you have to confront those issues. So this is a graphic presentation or representation of the issues that you have to deal with
Mm.
on the economic
Yeah.
and the advocacy ethical issue. Okay,
Mhm.
so
And thank you for sharing,
there you
Prof.
are.
Sam. This is
That's a guide.
actually this is actually very interesting and very relevant, especially now that we're in the age of corporate citizenship. And even within PMAP, it has been an ongoing conversation about ensuring that our practices are not just sustainable, because some organizations are saying that they're way past sustainable, they're way past sustainability, and they're now going towards
Uh-uh.
regenerative. They're now going towards regeneration, and this is a definitely a relevant matrix for, and not only
Uh,
for top leadership to make business decisions, but it could cascade down to the
yes.
individual level. If you're an individual contributor, at the end of the day, you
Yes.
still have finite resources to use, to play with, to utilize, and you're still confronted with either principled or non-principled decisions in your day-to-day work. So I think this is very interesting and very relevant, now that we're looking at making sure that our organizations and even as individuals, we're making positive impact to our society and our environment. Really great.
Yes. Yes. Well, some companies, some corporations actually enshrine their principles, their ethical principles, in their mission statement,
Hmm.
in their creed, in their creed. Johnson and Johnson, for example, has this very clearly stated in their creed. So the ethical limits with which uh, they constrain themselves. That is a voluntary constrainment. Huh?
Hmm.
I do know that the old Johnson and Johnson did that because they were actually run by people who were actually health practitioners. The problem is I don't want to accuse the financial guys for this, but the problem is when the financial the financial people started to invade the area of the boardrooms they start owning. They became more and more leaning. They lean more towards what is economically viable and profitable. So lumiit yung yung area for for what you cannot do because
Mhm.
it's it's already beyond what we say. We limit ourselves as far as ethics is concerned. So
Mhm.
and it's again things change, no?
Mhm. Yeah, that's right. That's right. And
So
I would like to note what you mentioned, the like voluntary constrainment, and I think very
yes,
similar to the
yes,
concept of self-regulation. And now we're seeing
self-regulation, yeah.
organizations also doing self-regulation, not just maximizing shareholder value, but also looking to regulate themselves so that they can make a positive impact to their communities. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, I'm very happy to have seen this, to have heard you walk us through this particular matrix because this is very relevant right now, especially within the context of PMAP and what the organization is advocating. Very much relevant. Thank you, Prof. Sam. I think we
Yeah.
have a couple more.
Yeah. Well, we are running out of time actually. But yeah, I well, we can proceed with the next list that I made.
Mhm.
I actually have this. Normally, I try to uh, state this is some sort of a survey, but I'm not going to do this now because you're. I understand that there are 1,000 companies and 3,000 representatives. So you're talking about getting the survey of 3,000 people, no, or at least 1,000. So I normally do this by letting people choose three among this list of goals. So these are just, and then so 1 to 15, make more money, aim for happiness and contentment, save the future, save for the future, search and find true love. So these are some of the things. And then, of course, there's the 15th there, others not mentioned, other goals not mentioned above. So I would ask people normally to select three and then rank them according to first priority, second priority, and the third priority. So, you know, you can ask yourself, the membership, ask yourself, what is important to me? Because that will define your own personal goals. And so, you can take a picture
Mhm.
of that and add
And
whatever you want.
there's a lot of potential means for our viewers and our membership to apply this. Like for example, of course,
Yes,
as an HR practitioner, you work with the business, so you can definitely ask them, help them to define their objectives first, and then definitely
yes,
come up and utilize some of the matrices and the frameworks and some of the models that you shared with us, so that we can help the business chart its direction. Likewise, when we deal and provide service, for example, to individual employees, to our individual
yes.
stakeholders, and then they reach out to us. And this is also a good way for us to look at things on how to move things forward. As we've mentioned, you have to set an objective. What is critical? What is important to you? And then if you have access to different frameworks and models so that you can make a decision, and some of them very qualitative, some of them you need to put in scores, can be quantitative with some level of discretion on the end of the practitioner. So again, very important and very relevant for our members, I should say.
Okay. I would like to, I mean, there are so many matrices, models that I want to show, but I would like to skip the others because we don't have time. I think we have only 10
Mhm.
minutes to go. So let's
That's
go
right.
straight to Maslow's model. No? And this is popular. Uh, the one that with the triangle next. There you are. Okay. Now, this is uh, something that's all of us are familiar. So this is always discussed in business schools. So these are the hierarchy of needs, and this is Abraham Maslow's model, and of course the graduation there. Now,
Mhm.
basic survival, of course, physiological needs, and then you need safety and security, affection and belonging, esteem, no, or self confidence, and then of course self actualization. Now, we often talk about this. We often nurture this in our own organizations and make people aware of this. I just have one critical issue of this is that this one was developed in a, this was developed in the Western world in a developed economy. Okay, and in a different in a type of culture. But you will notice that different cultures will have different priorities, and because it is presented in this pyramidal structure, it gives you the impression that the one on top are the most important. Well, I was just attending. I mentioned to you earlier, Lawrence, that I was just attending a forum on the status of the mental health of OFWs,
Mm-hmm.
presented by Dr. Ramirez. No, it's her latest survey research. And among in Scandinavia, she was talking about a lot of Scandinavian bosses, especially for seamen. Uh, they were wondering why the Filipino OFW get so stressed when they cannot send money home. So they're saying, why do they worry? They cannot sleep because when you're a seaman and you're in the middle of the sea and it's tuition time and you're not able to send money home, they get so worried, and then some of them, they have mental breakdowns. So the many of these Scandinavian guys, the bosses say, well, why we don't understand. Well, why worry about that? First of all, you're sending all your money home. You should reserve some for you because you're the one working. Well, I said that this is really culture, and uh,
Mm-hmm.
and they you will notice that this is actually reflective of Maslow's model, wherein the most important is the self.
Mm-hmm.
self. But but to a Filipino, Asian, mostly in a country like ours, family is very important.
Mm-hmm.
So I would like to present to the membership a different version. Maslow still, Abraham Maslow. I pronounce it as Maslow because it's actually Russian, no? Originally. I present it in a different perspective. So I would like to go to the next, please. Next slide. Instead of presenting it in that pyramidal or triangular pattern, I present it like this: that they are all important, but depending on the culture or the person, the circle, the five areas change in their share of the pie. So maybe as a Filipino, family, friendship, affection, etc., belongingness, maybe takes a bigger portion of the pie. Maybe breathing food, the basics, essential, if depending on your economic status, maybe that would take even a bigger portion of the pie. So I think if we practitioners of people management look at this as a more or less flexible um, matrix, wherein we don't really say that this is the most important all the time, and then we can address the problems and the issues of personnel, the staff,
Mm-hmm.
because different people will have different views of things. Um, for example, I do know that family is very important to Filipinos, and um, we we give them, especially in sales, we give them rewards, acknowledgments in corporations, but we always base it on the traditional Maslow hierarchy of needs, so that
Mm-hmm.
we give personal rewards on that basis, and sometimes we give them acknowledgement and 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 due their their due credit in the corporate setting. But then we forget that what is important to the person who is receiving this is his family. So question is, how many of us involve the family when it comes to rewarding our best performers? I think we should start thinking in terms of family. And let's say, okay, here's the award, but we want your family to be with you when you receive this award. As a matter of fact, better still, we want to give you your reward in your community. No? Not in the company, but in your community. Why? Because we're trying to make you earn respect and gravitas, no? In your own community, in your neighborhood, and your family. Because if we win this, the family, towards the objectives, the economic and whatever objectives that of the company are, the whole family will supervise your own worker. The son will say, "Hey, Dad, you're going to be late. You better go out now." Why? Because they know that their father or their mother is doing something that is truly important to the family, and the family understands it. I just want to say that as a part of our
Mm-hmm.
closing thing here. And that's the
Mm-hmm.
reason why I would rather present the Maslow's hierarchy in terms of a pie. And then you decide which one is important.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
It does
And that,
not
that is
necessarily have to
definitely.
be in the
Mhm. That's
traditional.
definitely very thought provoking, Professor Sam, because as you've mentioned, a lot of us in the HR profession and even people managers, we just look at the Maslow's hierarchy of needs at face value, and not really taking into consideration the context that we are a very collectivist society. And perhaps what's more important to us, to
Yes,
our Filipino workers, to our Filipino professionals, is really not at the individual level of self actualization, but really going beyond that in ensuring that our peers, our family members, and even our community members, as we've mentioned, are also actualized. And then that maybe, if we're going to be using
yes,
still the pyramid, that might be at the topmost part of the pyramid, but now that you were able to show us this particular pie approach, for example, with different sizes, and not necessarily something that is escalating in nature, definitely this is something that our fellow HR practitioners, our fellow people managers could really think about on a much deeper level, and then perhaps try to integrate for when they make human resources or people management decisions. So thank you for including and
yes,
for sharing
especially
this,
on
Prof.
the
Sam.
reward system. Uh,
That's right.
okay, so I guess,
Thank you. Thank you.
for the time that we have, we've covered a lot.
Agree, and I know we were able to skip some of the framework, some of the models that you're supposed to show us, and but we know from the very beginning that 1 hour is definitely not enough to cover all of these things. No, very very important, very valuable insights. No, and some of these very proprietary that you were able to craft. No, and we're very happy to have heard that directly from you. And the beauty of the People Manager on Cam is that this is actually not just a live stream, but this is also going to be recorded. So for our viewers who were not able to take a picture, take a snapshot of some of the models and the frameworks that you were able to share, or perhaps came in a bit late and are wondering what we were discussing the first few minutes, they would have an opportunity to still go back to our to the opening parts or portions of our segment today. So once again, thank you
Okay.
so much
Well,
for your time, Prof. Sam.
I would like to just mention that I have started a podcast.
Hmm.
The title is Coffee Talks in the Clouds. It's on Spotify. If you want to hear some of the items spoken there, it's free anyway, a 15-minute discussion of certain important things. And yeah, you can listen to that. Coffee Talks in the Clouds, Spotify. Okay,
Okay,
so
coffee talks in the clouds.
in the clouds, yes.
In the
In the
clouds.
cloud
Okay, so
coffee
I
talks.
hope that some of our listeners, some of our viewers, I'm pretty sure medyo nabitin tayo from the 1 hour discussion that we've had with Prof. Sam, and you can hear some more of his insights when you subscribe to his podcast. So once again, thank you so much. It's a pleasure really to have you with us here in PMAP, specifically on People
My
Manager
pleasure.
on
My
Cam,
pleasure.
Professor Sam. Great, great. Thank you, and see you next time, Prof. Sam.
My pleasure. And very much, Lawrence, for um, your involvement in this. And thank you also to Mr. Hinef, no, for giving me this
Mm.
opportunity. So I guess thank you, PMAP, no, membership. Good afternoon.
Our pleasure. Our pleasure. Thank you, Professor Sam. And that actually concludes our People Manager on Cam episode for the month of February. I hope that you were able to take down some notes. A lot of these things fairly technical, perhaps some of these things fairly new to you. So, of course, the best way for us to apply our application is to make sure that we talk to our stakeholders and then we involve them once we roll out some of the frameworks that fascinated us. And as always, we're going to have more conversations. We're just in February, so we still have like 10 more months for the year of 2024. And there's going to be a lot of things that we can cover for our musts and anticipate these segments for the remainder of the year. Once again, my name is Lawrence Ko of Mondelez Incorporation, and this has been People Manager on Cam. Good afternoon, everyone.